Hi, everybody. Welcome to Reading Between the Lines. I'm Sarah, and I'm joined by my mom, Nicole.
Welcome.
We are talking about October reads, and we're also talking about past reads from September and maybe some spooky books that we're looking forward to round out this month. So,
Yeah.
before we dive into that, Mom, how are you? I'm loving the background. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to see the background of some of Mom's quilting projects that are spooky vibes. And then, how was your September reading?
Well, September wasn't my best reading month in recent memory, probably because I was very distracted. I've had a blog for 18 years, and the blogging platform that was hosting my blog announced that they were closing down forever and all content would be lost if not moved before September 30th. So I was very distracted throughout at least the first half of September, working with this fantastic tech guy that I discovered thanks to Sarah's recommendation to a site called Fiverr. If you ever have technological issues with your computer, Fiverr is a great place to start. They have a lot of independent computer wizards that work from various places all over the world. And I found a guy from Pakistan who was absolutely amazing. And he was able to do the job brilliantly. I've moved to a WordPress site, and I think the search features and the look of the blog, which is called Sister's Choice Quilts, is better than it ever was. I wish I'd done it years ago. So
Well, good.
I only read 9 books in September. And, if you're not a big reader, 9 books in 1 month probably sounds like a lot. But I typically do read more than that. I'm a fast reader and I often read more than one thing at once. So I typically get in a little bit more than 9 books. But of the 9, I'm going to talk about 3 of them that were pretty good. Do you want me to start?
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. Why? Now, did we want to also talk about book journaling just a
Oh
little
my
bit today?
gosh. I have gone down a rabbit hole, a big rabbit hole. There are a lot of young girls, usually they're between 20 and 30, I think that's young, on YouTube who do book journals. And they range in how fancy their book journals are. I mean, they use stickers, they use their own drawings, they use markers to decorate the pages. But at the very minimum, a book journal is a way to track the books that you read, the books that you might have on your TBR. You can even set it up so you can play book bingo. I will hold my journal up so you can see some of the things I've been doing. This is my spread for the books that I have on my TBR from book of the
So
month
cute.
purchases only. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see I have stickers that are the exact replica of the book cover. I discovered this fantastic woman on Etsy, and you can make a list in Goodreads of any kind of books you want, books that you want to read, books that you have read, and she'll make stickers for you. And it's not very expensive, and they're really colorful. They're ready to use. They're already cut. You just peel them off and stick them in your book journal. And it's a marvelous way to look and get a real visual of what you've read, say in the month of August. Like here's my July spread. And I wrote notes on various specifics of details about the book. What format was it? Who was the publisher, what were the dates that I read it. And this is a wonderful way to look back on your reading progress and to keep track of. I've been having a fantastic time with it. I admit I did buy some stickers, but I don't think I'm going to go like totally down the rabbit hole of decorating my book journal. But I've been really enjoying tracking what I've read.
I'm curious. I know that you posted about this on your blog. Did you get much response? Like, how many do other people do this to the extent that you do? Do they go even deeper down the rabbit hole, or just
I
like
think
nobody has
maybe
time for
one
this?
person. I'm the only grandma in the world, I think, that does this. Everybody else who does this is like 25. But be that as it may, I did get a response from a number of readers. A lot of them do track the books that they've read, and also I was flattered. A lot of them keep lists of book recommendations from people like me and like you, who have a podcast or do book reviews, so that they have a list. So the next time they want to know what should I read next, they have a resource to go to get an idea of what they might want to borrow from the library or buy on their Kindle or buy at their local independent bookstore.
I love that. I am a big fan of also of other book podcasts like Book Talk,
Yes.
etc. And they have wonderful recommendations over there. But I'm always in the car and I don't remember to I can't jot things down in the car. So I need to figure out like, but I love the idea of writing down recommendations so I
Well,
don't
I'll give you
forget.
a tip. For instance, the book, what was the title of that book's TBR book recommend, the podcast you just mentioned? What's it called?
Oh,
Book
Book Talk,
Talk,
etc.
etc. So if you just look them up on your laptop, you can get a transcript, or at the very least, a highlighted list of what books they discussed. So it's not lost just because you didn't write it down at the moment.
Well, I didn't even think about that, of course. So, anything else? I mean, I don't really book journal. I have a digital book tracker that if you go to the Instagram page for the podcast, which is Reading Pod, reading with two E's, I have a link to a free book tracker that has a visual component like what my mom was talking about, where you can see the book covers. But I loved seeing your book and having something physical to kind of be able to go back to and like look over year. And I also love the like notes and annotations you made. It's really just kind of a nice practice to get into of having a
I
physical
want to show you
journal.
one more thing while I describe what this is. This is a truly alarming record. I decided to track the books that I purchased since January 1st of
Oh
2025.
God, why?
I mean, it's a lot of books. And how am I ever going to read these? If
Does
I live to be 150 years old, I won't have time to read all these books. So it's an eye
oh my
opener.
God.
It really is. Make this.
For people who can't see, because people who are listening, how many books would you say is on that list you just showed?
Well, I think it's less than 100.
Oh my God.
Oh,
Does
God,
dad
no.
know?
It's 77.
Oh, and it's only
I'm
October.
going to stop right now. I tell you right now. I'm not buying any more books.
But how many books have you read from that list?
Not very many. Maybe
Oh
10, maybe
crap.
12. Not nearly enough.
Oh, to
Oh,
justify the
absolutely
purchases.
not.
So,
No. Mm-mm.
and these are hardbacks
Mostly, yeah.
or audiobooks, which are
Yeah.
pricey too.
I don't think I counted
So,
them.
I have a friend who was recommending to me this really great idea, and I'm not going to totally say it yet because I probably will do it. But that wasn't helpful. She was mentioning that college students, and I've noticed this sometimes with some of Eva's projects in middle school and now high school, where they've read a book for a class. You're reading a book. And then you need to do journal prompts or like just journal about what you've read. And your teacher just says, journal about it, write 2
Yeah.
pages. And it's kind of hard sometimes to think about like, well, what the hell should I talk
Yeah.
about? Like what's worth mentioning? So, um I think that's an interesting concept. And I wanted to ask like, are you journaling about this at all or just giving kind of a quick synopsis of like terms that come to mind
I'm
when
keeping
if you want to.
statistics. I do book reviews on my podcast and I transfer those over to Goodreads. So I see no reason to write them out longhand in a journal. I just don't see any reason to do that. A lot of these very gung ho young book journalists that I watch on YouTube do that. They'll devote 2 pages in their journal, an open spread with pictures, drawings, and every detail about the book, including a pretty elaborate review of their thoughts. And I'm not interested in doing that. I really like just not noting next to my little book sticker the title, the author, what genre, was it a mystery, was it historical fiction, how many pages, and then I do track how many pages I read for the whole month, when it was published, what format, was it an audible book, was it in print, was it paperback, and the date that I read it. And that's kind of interesting to look back on. Did it take me 3 weeks to get through this book because I just wasn't loving picking it up, or did I read it in 2 days? It's just kind of interesting. And then if there's room, I'll keep statistics, like the total books I read in July was 12. The total pages was 4,229. It wasn't a very good reading month, apparently. I didn't like very many of these 12 books because the average rating was only 3.31. So that's an indication that I didn't choose very well during the month of July. Anyway, I think it's just kind of fascinating if you're a little bit of a nerd to keep track of some of these statistics to look back on. And there's certainly much, much more that you could track. You could track if you're reading books from people of color, or if you're reading books that have a feminist point of view. I wanted to tell you about one other thing that I have been doing that has been super fun. It's book bingo. What you do is you make a little spread, a grid of, say, 25 squares. And in each square, you write a prompt, which is what you're going to try to bingo. For instance, a book with a one-word title, a book that includes recipes, a book that was recommended on a podcast. And as you read books that fit any of those categories, you can color it in with a felt pen. And then I keep a list of what the titles were that fulfilled those various bingo squares. And it's actually kind of fun. And I would really recommend that for somebody who doesn't read as much as they really would like to. This could be these prompts could really be an impetus to picking books that fit into the various categories that you chose for yourself when you made your bingo game.
I think that is so clever and really, really fun to gamify it as well. And, you can always look up bingo game, bingo book
Oh, yeah.
bingo prompts or suggestions. What I was going to ask is, do you think the act of doing the reviews and writing the reviews that you have on your blog help you retain what you
Absolutely.
read?
Yes.
Okay. So I think that's obviously the point that the teachers are having with whether it's college or high school, like
Yeah.
having the student
Right.
journal about the book because it's going to help them retain it more. And I think this is a great idea because I don't remember anything about the book like the minute I put it down. And so this might be a
It
practice that
also
would help me.
encourages critical thinking and not just remembering the details of the book, but to actually put down in your own words how it made you feel, what you liked, what annoyed you about the book, because there very often is a reason that a book doesn't make it to 5 stars. Maybe you only rated it 4.5 stars. Well, why? What was it about that book that was going so splendidly that made you knock off, a few points? And I think that's something that really deserves some thoughtful thinking for all readers.
Agreed. Okay. Well, this was really that's a good topic. I would love to hear from anybody if they do book bingo or if they have any more recommendations for ways to journal or how you are keeping track of your reading in your books. I have lost I can't even talk anymore. If you are book
Yeah,
journaling,
and
we'd love to know.
tell us why.
All right.
What makes you wanna do it? Is it just you wanna remember if you already read, the 4th book in that series, so you don't buy it again? Or what's your reason for wanting to write down the books that you read?
So, Mom, let's jump into some of those September reads that you
Okay.
do want to recommend, and you go
I read a
first.
book called Buckeye by Patrick Ryan, which was published September 2nd, 2025 by Random House. And this book has been getting a lot of hype. It's described as sweeping, quote unquote. And I think what that means is that the book covers a lot of years. It follows a small town cast of characters throughout their entire lives in a little place in Ohio called Bon Ami, which I think translates to good friend. But anyway, the book starts at the end of World War II, and as it winds down, there is a stolen moment of passion between two characters in the book that we're going to follow. And this moment of passion has aftershocks that affect not only those two characters, but their families for the rest of their lives, like for decades. And these characters seem like they were really personal to the author. It is almost as if he knew them. They seemed really real. And that by all means, they weren't perfect. They all had their faults, as we all do. And because of this omniscient eye that we're viewing their lives through, we see things about them that they probably would wish that we didn't see. But anyway, the small town setting is very vivid. The characters are super realistic, and there are definitely secrets, estrangements, reconciliations, heartbreak. I mean, a lot goes on in this book, but ultimately it's hopeful and extremely well written. This Patrick Ryan is definitely knows what he's doing. And this is a book that really wanted to give 5 stars to, but I didn't because there was something about it that just I didn't want to pick it up all that often. It took me a long time to finish this book. And while I appreciated the story and how well it was written, there was just something about it that put me off a little bit in terms of why in the world did these characters make the decisions they made, and why did they that lack of communication trope really irritates.
That's
Yeah,
always
and
my
and
worst,
this book
least
had that
favorite.
going on to quite a degree.
Okay. Well, all right. You gave it a good try. Let me jump over to mine, and then tell me the theme again of that book. Would you say what
I
would
would
you say
say
that was classified as?
it's not just a family saga because it involves several families, but it follows their lives and their children and the decisions they make that all sort of lead back to what happened as World War II was ending.
Okay, so family drama and historical
Mhm.
fiction, though, for
Yeah.
sure. So,
And I don't
okay.
mean that it wasn't
Um,
was a great book, and it's probably gonna be the number 1 book that a lot of people are gonna pick for their best of the year. For me, I enjoyed it a lot, but it's not gonna be the best of the year.
okay. Well, I read, and maybe you've read this because I've been listening to this in our Audible library that we share, The Square of
Yes.
Sevens. Did you hear
I
that or
did. It's
listen to
been a
that one?
while. I couldn't give you a synopsis off the top of my head, but yeah, I did. I did. Can't hear you, sweetie.
Oh, there we go. So The Square of Sevens was published September 5th of 2023 by Atria Books, and the author is Laura Shepard Robinson. So what of course got me is like tarot cards, basically, is kind of the theme. Not, I mean, it's not tarot cards, but it's very like fortune telling and with cards. So this is set in the 18th century in England, and it follows a young lady who is orphaned, who is a fortune teller, and she spent her life reading fates right along beside her father, using this old Cornish method that her father had taught her. And after his death, she's taken in by a gentleman who takes pity on her. He's a scholar in Bath, and she's raised to be a proper lady. And unfortunately, she's really haunted by who her parents were. She never knew her mother. And her father was also very desperate to hide her, like our main character, her existence, and was always very fearful that there were people coming to find her and take her away or kill her. So there's a lot of mystery behind like her origins. So her search pulls her from Cornwall into London, and there's a lot of lovely historical, like deep diving into some of the different neighborhoods of London. It's a very rich and I would say Dickenson.
Dickensian.
Am I saying this right? Like, yeah, it's like a Charles
Yeah,
Dickens
yeah.
kind of a story. It's got mystery. You're not kind of, you are following the protagonist from childhood to adulthood, and it's also a big mystery. So like every revelation, it feels like you're turning over a new tarot card that could change the fate of things. I felt that this book was extremely well written, and this author is very underappreciated. Super well researched historical fiction. I was really hooked. And this isn't like a wildly fast paced kind of a book. Has a nice
Mhm.
meander to it. And it was just so captivating. So I highly recommend this. I gave
You
it
know, now
five
that you've
stars. So that
you've
was The
reminded
Square.
me of the plot, I enjoyed this book too. I enjoyed it tremendously. I think I gave it 5 stars as well. Yeah.
Just so well done. So, all right, what is
Okay,
your
the
next one?
next one is a book called The Names by Florence Knapp, which was published May 6th, 2025 by Pamela Dorman Books. And this was an extremely thought-provoking book. Um, Cora and her 9-year-old daughter are on a mission. They're pushing a brand new baby that Cora just delivered, and they're going to the town hall to register the child's birth. And Cora has an extremely controlling husband named Gordon, who has instructed her that the child, who is a boy, must be named after him. So Cora is considering some other options, however, as she and her daughter walk along towards the town hall. She is considering, Gordon is the first option because that's her husband's name, and that's what she's been told is going to be the child's name. But she likes the name Julian, and her 9-year-old daughter weighs in with the name Bear, which she really likes and thinks that her baby brother should be called Bear, and that would be a really good name. So, what this book does is it unfurls the story of 3 parallel lives. Each life is based on the name that this baby boy is given. And so it's like there's 3 parallel universes, and each each life gets its own part in the book. And if the child was named Gordon after his father, what would he turn out to be like? If he was named Bear, as his big sister suggests, how would that affect the way that he turned out in the world? So it was a really, really interesting probe into identity, legacy, and how a single choice can ripple across generations. One major trigger warning for this book is that Cora's husband, Gordon, is extremely abusive. I don't believe I have ever read such domestic abuse in a book in my life. And it was very, very hard to read parts of this book. And I think that is probably its main criticism on Goodreads when you read other people's reviews that really put a lot of people off. But
It was just too
But
much.
ultimately, I thought that the story itself was extremely thought-provoking. I mean, how much influence is there in the name that we're given, and how we're treated, and how we do we manifest qualities that of whatever that name brings with it. So anyway, it was I think it was well worth reading if you've got a little bit of a stomach for reading unpleasant.
But it
It
was
was.
intense.
It was for sure.
Okay. Well, I read a book that you have read. I finally got through it. It was Babel by R.F.
Kuang,
Kuang.
yeah.
Kuang. And I didn't realize that Miss Kuang is very young. Like she is a brand new author, and she's already. I mean, she's already quite famous. She's had quite a few New York
Yeah.
best New York Times
Yeah.
bestsellers, like Yellow Face, which you read recently. So this was came out in 2022 in August by Harper Voyager. This is claiming to be dark academia, and it totally, like, on paper, yes, it is, I suppose, dark academia, but I didn't feel that. I didn't really, it wasn't what I wanted for dark academia. Anyway, this is a story that basically is about how language, power, and rebellion can all collide. It takes place roughly, I mean, this is a fantasy, but it takes place roughly in like 1840. And it follows our main character, Robin. He's a Chinese orphan brought to London to study languages, and that's what his aptitude is. The idea is that he will one day go to Oxford and go to the learning institution known as Babel. And this isn't just about like books and magic. Babel has enchanted silver bars that literally fuel the British Empire by the words that are engraved in them, and like the magic and the the meaning of the words and how they can be manipulated to create magic with silver. So Robin gets pulled into a lot of politics and then secrets behind the institute. Um, he has to decide where his loyalty lies, and it's a little bit like the book I was just talking about, kind of a Dickinson type of book where we're following from a young child all the way to adulthood, this main character. I enjoyed some parts of this book, though it was way too long. And what I enjoyed was that it was extremely well researched, amazing detail. It's clear that the author is not only super intelligent, but also has a gift for prose. This book does explore racism, and it's hard to say that I enjoyed reading about racism, but what I appreciated that there are three main characters here. One is Indian, one is Haitian, and one is Chinese, and they are all at Oxford. Now, this book in particular does not paint the Oxford University system very well at all. I don't know if any of that is true, but definitely in the 1840s, these characters experienced a lot of racism, and it brings to light what their experience may have been like. And so it was a slow burn read. I read it during one of my travels when I was going out of state for work, and I did enjoy it, but it was too long.
Well, I
So,
one thing that I did enjoy about that book was the relationship between the three students and how that developed and changed over the course of the book. I thought it was really
yeah.
well written too. I agree with you that it was a lot longer than it should have been. She's got a new book out called Catabasis, which is also set in a institute of learning, I believe. Her other book, Yellow Face, I really enjoyed, and that was a book about plagiarism, basically.
I agree with you. For anyone, especially like when you're a young adult and you have like a core grouping of friends and you spend all of your extra time with them, um, it's interesting to see how like eventually that might fall apart as they get older and things change. And that's definitely something that I personally have experienced, and reminisce about how great those old
Yeah.
days were. But then, of course, realize now like how it was not long lasting. It couldn't have been sustainable. But anyway, um, it was well done, but again, I don't know. I'm not like eager to go pick up another book from her
Yellow
just
Face
yet.
was so
So
different that, and the plot was a little more propulsive. So if you were to pick up, I would recommend Yellowface before you tackled a big tome like Catabasis. Shall I move on to my third book? My third book is called The Heartbreak Hotel. We're going to make a big major switch here, major switch. Heartbreak Hotel by Ellen O'Clover, which sounds like a made-up name to me, but I have to assume it's real. Anyway, Ellen O'Clover wrote The Heartbreak Hotel, and it was published by Berkeley, September 23rd, 2025. And this is a book about a bed and breakfast inn for the brokenhearted, and much more, actually. But it was a light read, and it was just what I needed to get my mind off all these blog migration issues. Laura is our main character, and she gets dumped by her wealthy rock star boyfriend. And she and he had been living in an absolutely fantastic home in the mountains of Colorado. And they were renting it. And she had transformed this house into her dream home. It was cozy. It was just a place she never, ever wanted to leave. Well, unfortunately, now that she doesn't have his income coming in anymore, she can't afford the rent on the place, and she doesn't want to give it up. So she persuades her grumpy but gorgeous, of course he is, landlord to let her turn the place into a B&B for the recently heartbroken. And of course, sparks soon fly between Laura and her hot landlord, and the influx of these guests that are very eccentric. And of course, they're all brokenhearted because they've just recently had some kind of breakup. That part was very entertaining. This cast of characters that comes and goes through the doors of this bed and breakfast. It was fun. There were parts of
I do love like a hotel
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like a
And
book.
it was the influx of guests were very different. You know, a lot of different. I mean, a lot of people get heartbreak, and they're not all this. They're not all the same. So anyway, parts of the book were kind of spicy, and I found that they were skippable. And so if you're not really a fan of a spice level in a book, this one, I think it would be okay because you can skip over those parts if you don't like it. But it was quite
Right.
entertaining and very amusing. Predictable, totally predictable, but it was exactly what I wanted to read at that point.
Cool. Okay. And what did you
I
rate
gave
that
it 4
one?
stars. I gave all of these 4 stars.
4. Okay. Got it. Okay. I might want to read that. What
I have
format did you
it's
read it in?
print. I think I got it. It might have been a book of the month. I think it was a book of the month selection. So yeah, I've got
Okay.
it.
I may need to
It was
borrow
cute.
it. That
It
sounds
was.
cute. So, okay. Well, my third book was a sci-fi book. It's been a while. Like I feel like I always read sci-fi, but that's not necessarily true. This year I have not really read
You've
much
branched
sci-fi.
out. I think you've really
So,
branched out.
I have tried, though we'll talk about this in December, but like my goal of reading books by like modern classic authors has not really panned out. I just don't want to. So anyway, I'll move on. This is a book called The Stardust Grail by Yumi Kitase, and this came out in June of 2024 by Flatiron Books. So this whole premise at first, to be completely honest, I bought this book because I love this author and I've read a couple other of her books and they're fantastic. But this premise, I was like, wait, what? Oh, I don't want to read this. But I gave it a shot. And it is our main character used to be the galaxy's most legendary art thief. So that right there really put me off because it just sounds
Oh, but
ridiculous.
is it a heist?
She
I love a heist book.
I know this is a space
Oh, great.
heist book. And if sci-fi is not your thing, I do
Okay.
recommend this because this is so good. So Maya is our main character, and she used to steal artifacts back from humans to return them to other ancient alien civilizations, not to cast shade on the British Museum, but we all know that the British Museum has a lot of stuff that doesn't belong to it. So this is kind of the thought process there, is like she's kind of a like a Robin Hood, but for returning artifacts to other civilizations. But after one job that went horribly wrong, she disappeared and tried to start fresh, doing some anthropology as a grad student. I think she's at Yale. I can't remember which, but she's at like she's it's the future and she's still at Yale. So, but this doesn't really last long because an old friend shows up with a job that is way too big to ignore. So it's like one last heist, and they need to track down a lost object that would save her friend, who's an alien, that alien species from extinction. So currently, her friend, the type of species that she is like a ginormous jellyfish, and her species cannot produce children anymore. And so they are all dying off. But this one artifact could help with that. So Maya then decides to, of course, go on this amazing adventure with her friend. And it's very much like Indiana Jones, except in the future and in space. So it's different planets that we're visiting, ancient ruins of long lost other alien civilizations. The deeper she goes, the more she realizes that someone she loves is going to turn on her. It's really great. So what I enjoyed about this book was also, in a way, diversity, but we've got a main character who's a ginormous jellyfish, and the spaceship that they are in, usually each room in the ship needs to be filled with water so that our jellyfish friend can exist. So it was just interesting, like, if the whole group of people flying together on the ship wanted to be together, they would need to drain the water, and our jellyfish character would need to put on her special suit so they could all be together in the same space. So there's a lot of boundaries, what I'm trying to present here. And our main character, Maya, who's human, has a wonderful bond and friendship with the jellyfish. They are like, it's a found family situation. And the jellyfish is almost like her mother, basically. And there's still a lot of cultural differences, physical space differences, and yet they have this very strong bond. So I thought that was super cool. And there's also a character who acts as like a bodyguard and is a soldier and has this mechanized suit that she is always wearing because she's disabled and has lost the use of most of her limbs. But this suit allows her to live this different life and to really protect everybody and keep everybody safe on this dang ship. So it's just fascinating. It was just fun to have all these diverse characters. So lastly, I will say I enjoyed this book. Absolutely super fun. Not silly at all. And Yumi is one of my favorite authors. And while I did ask her if she could be on the podcast, she's very busy right now with a new book release called Salt Crop that she just put out last week. But she was really gracious to send me 3 signed book plates. She has 3 books that I have. And so she sent me these 3
Oh,
like
how
big
sweet.
stickers, and so I put them in my books. So now I have a nice hardback collection that it's all signed. And her new release, Salt Crop, is quite different. It's I think more post-apocalypse, and it's about 2 sisters who are sailing across the oceans to find their missing third sister. And Earth is failing, like the ice caps have
Wow.
melted, and so there's some drama there. Anyway,
It sounds
great
like
book.
that your
That
author
was
has a tremendous imagination. I wanted to interject something about museums uh, having things that don't belong to them. I recently finished a book called The Stolen Queen by Fiona Davis. And the main character, one of the main characters in the book, is a curator at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And her specialty is Egyptian artifacts. And there was quite a discussion in this book that, yes, a lot of these Egyptian artifacts really do belong in Egypt. But the fact of the matter is, the Egyptians they don't have the proper place to store these things so that they will be protected and preserved forever. The temperature has to be at a certain rate. The moisture level has to be controlled. There's a lot that goes into having these artifacts on display in a safe manner that will, in fact, preserve them for hundreds of years so that many other people on the planet can see them. And if that happens to be in London, or if it happens to be in New York, maybe we shouldn't object. I mean, if Egypt were to finally come up with a museum
Yeah,
that could handle all these things, yes, they should go.
by
But
all
anyway, that was
means.
an interesting
Yeah.
thing that I had never really thought about.
That's a really good that's a really good point too. And, I think this same topic is definitely covered in the book I was just talking about, and a great discussion of like, I mean, this is all fantasy with
Right.
like different alien civilizations, which we don't have, but like if we imagine it as just other cultures, um, and to your point, that's true. There are, sometimes for preservation, those cultures can't keep them. So yeah. Anyway, good stuff. So let's switch to talking about
Oh my
spooky
gosh.
reads we are
I am
looking
so
forward
excited
to.
to talk about books for spooky season. For me, it's been all about witches. I have 3 books I want to talk about, and every single one of them is about a witch. The first one I recently finished. It's called The First Witch of Boston by Andrea Catalano, published by Lake Union Publishing on September 2nd of this year. And the book is based on the true story of Margaret Jones, who was the first woman to be executed as a witch in the state of Massachusetts. It's set in the 1600s, and at that time, pretty much any outspoken woman was suspected of being under the devil's influence. If her husband wasn't controlling her and she, spouted off at some other person in the town that she didn't care for the way they were conducting themselves, it didn't go well with the other citizens. Women were just supposed to be quiet and do the work around the house, support their husbands, and pretty much just shut up. And in particular, if these women fancied themselves as an herbalist, or if they practiced healing, say a midwife, or helped somebody's baby who had the croup with some herbal tincture that they made from herbs from the garden. This definitely was not looked upon with very much sympathy or support by the townspeople. And this book unfolded pretty much predictably, as it's history. This happened. She was executed, so we know that's coming. But much of it was told from the point of view of her husband, which made it more interesting to me. And he loved her very much. And he did wish that she'd keep her opinions to herself, because he didn't want her to be arrested. He didn't want her to be hauled off to the dungeon and, hung or worse as a punishment. And one thing about this book, which surprised me a great deal, is that it was kind of spicy. There were a lot of scenes between this woman and her husband and other characters in the book that, yeah, they were kind of spicy. I wasn't expecting the book to go in that direction, but maybe it was the author's attempt to make a story that we all thought we knew, how it was going to pan out, to give it a little variety. I don't I don't know.
Probably.
But anyway, it was a good book, and I did enjoy it.
Go ahead with your next one because I only have one to
Okay,
talk
well, I'm
about. So you go
currently
ahead.
reading a book. I've never read anything like it. It's called Salt and Broom by Sharon Lynn Fisher, published
Oh, this sounds
published by
so good.
47 North, in September of 2023. And the book is a witchy retelling of Jane Eyre. So, Jane has been hired as a last resort by prickly Mr. Rochester because she's a witch. She teaches at a school not too far away that is for the training of young women to become witches. and she's good at, spells and using herbs to cast charms and so forth. Mr. Rochester suspects that Thornfield Hall, which is his estate, is it's been invaded by spiritual beings that mean him no good. And so he thinks it possibly could be the spirit of his recently deceased wife. And Jane is to use her charms and herb healing to banish this evil spirit from Thornfield Hall. And of course, as Jane and Mr. Rochester become closer, she begins to fear that her spells may not be strong enough to do the job and that he's going to come to some harm and she won't be able to save him. And I haven't finished the book, but it's one of those deals where I had an opportunity to read it on my Kindle, but I can also listen to the audio version. And oh my gosh, the audio version is really, really quite good. Um, it's very atmospheric. I would say that it's quite gothic in its tone. And oh my gosh, if you're in the mood for something that's not gonna scare the liver out of you, but will just give you that, Halloween, a spooky vibe, this book could really be a hit for you.
And tell me again, what format did you keep or
Well,
read this
2
book in?
formats. I'm reading it on my Kindle,
Okay.
but I don't know how this happens, but every once in a while, a Kindle book is also available in an Audible format through Audible. And so I've been listening to it, probably more than I've been reading it, and I've been enjoying the Audible version, most. So
Cool. Okay, I get to listen to it
yeah,
too then.
yeah.
That'll be fun. So, all right, I'll interject with mine and
Okay.
then you can wrap up with your last one. I haven't read this. This is just a suggestion. I read a cult, like a cult. I read a modern classic horror novel called Bunny by Mona
I've
Awad,
heard
and
of
I
this.
read this in the summertime. It's got this, it's a crazy book. And I really can't say too much about it. I've already spoken about
Right,
it in
right.
previous podcasts, but it is basically about a very lonely young lady who is in a graduate program at a prestigious university, and she is kind of a loner, and she falls in with this group of like the Heathers. It's, like that old 80s movie, like these very popular girls who are have it all together and are just, kind of like Mean Girls, I guess. That's like a modern version. So she falls in with these mean girls, and they they're I don't know how much gives what away. It basically, they are able to manifest things by sacrificing bunnies. I'll just say that. And so, like, that's gross and yucky. But this book has a very deep psychological aspect to it. And a lot of it is, you wonder how reliable the narrator really is. So, how our main character, is she schizophrenic? Is this all really actually happening? We just don't know. I mention this because um, there's a sequel now. And not only is it a sequel, but it is both a sequel and a prequel in one book. So it's called We Love You, Bunny, by Mona Awad. And it goes a little bit deeper into our main character's life before she goes to graduate school. And then what happens at the climax of the first book, where there were some very scary, creepy, yucky revelations. So I'm looking forward to reading this. Let me just double check the date of when this has come out. Yeah, it came out 2 weeks ago, so September 23rd. And again, this is a big cult classic. If you like horror, or if you're interested in reading very popular books that people go nuts for, this is a horror novel, but it's also dark academia, and it is creepy.
Well, alrighty
So,
then.
yeah, there's that. Anyway, what is
Oh
your
my
last
gosh,
one,
the
Mom?
last book I'd like to mention, I have it on the Kindle, but apparently the cover is absolutely exquisite, and I kind of wish I'd bought bought the hardback because it's so pretty. But anyway, the book is called A Dark and Secret Magic by Wallis Kinney, published in October of 2024 by Alcove Press. And the book takes place the week before Halloween. And everyone knows that witches' powers are at their peak at that particular time, just between, the end of autumn and Halloween itself. So our main character is Hecate Goodwin, and she's a hedge witch who lives in a secluded cottage with her black cat for company. And I didn't know what a hedge witch is, but apparently it's a witch that uses a lot of herbs and things that she grows to manifest her spells and her power. But
I think it's like a British
oh
British
yeah, for
term
sure.
too, maybe.
And I'm not really sure when this book is supposedly taking place, and I'm not really sure where either, because I mean it's pretty fantastical. But anyway, Hecate apparently doesn't understand the strength of her actual powers. Her mother has usually a witch gets to choose what branch of witchdom she wants to go into. And Hecate wasn't allowed to do that. Her mother just said, "You're going to be a hedge witch." But it turns out that there was a reason for her mother doing this, and that Hecate is actually qualified to do much more than grow herbs and cast spells with them. So the book, and I haven't finished it, I've started it, and it's very atmospheric. It's very, very fall, very autumnal. So if you're in the mood for all things fall, you're going to love this. And I'll finish with the description that I got from the publisher. This book is described as a celebration of the Halloween season and a love letter to anyone who drinks pumpkin spice in August and carries the spirit of a witch inside their heart all year long. And so far, it's very cozy, very autumnal, and I can't wait to watch Hecate bloom beyond growing rosemary and thyme in the garden.
That sounds really cute. It reminds me this slightly of like Kiki's Delivery Service, where Kiki, her mom is like a hedge witch, and then but Kiki's only talent is like
Right,
flying,
right.
and so Kiki but usually you can choose what path you go on. But anyway,
So
that
it's been
sounds
all
super
about
cute.
the witches for me so far this month.
I love it. Well, okay. So that will wrap it up for us for this episode. Anything else worth mentioning, Mom?
The Witch's Magical Guide to Innkeeping. That's coming up on my list.
Oh, that
And
sounds good.
sorry, I can't remember the author's name. Her first name starts with an S and her last name starts with an M. Maldana, something like that. She wrote another book about a witch that I read a year ago. That was really good. So I highly recommend. Just look up the title, "The Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping."
Oh,
Yes,
Sangu
yes, thank
Mandana.
you.
And she wrote the one about the little baby witches that needed
Yes, and they were
supervision.
so naughty and they did terrible tricks and they brought somebody back to life that they shouldn't have, and it was just like, and I think in
Yeah.
this new book, The Magical Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping, I think that this resurrected individual who was a relative of some sort is still in the picture, sort of like Lurch, needing to be dealt with.
Oh my God. I do like that when authors kind of continue on like the world building,
Right.
or like carry a few, like they weave in past
Yeah.
characters. I do love that. Oh, side note, unrelated to witches. One of my favorite books, The Maid, which takes, I forget the
Frida,
author, I could go look it up, but takes
Frida
place in New
McFadden.
York. Not that one. The one that's like more like Agatha Christie mystery.
Is she
Hang on.
the
Molly Maid.
neu
She's autistic,
neurodivergent?
basically, but
Yes,
they never say that.
Nita Prose?
Very good. Yes, exactly. So my brother, Aaron, read that, And he was like really surprised. He's like, the main character is like neurodivergent, but nobody talks about it. And I was like, well, they don't need to. Like, it's anyway, he had like a lot of thoughts about the book, and he didn't really enjoy it. And I loved this book so much. And so I was really disappointed that he didn't like it as much. And he chose to mention all of these like holes in the plot that I hadn't realized. And now I'm like, oh, I can't argue with what he said, but I just didn't notice
That was one
that.
of those books where
So,
you just have to like go with it and, don't be too picky. And
yeah.
I think she's come
So
out with
anyway,
maybe the 3rd book featuring that character.
I think
Is
it's like
it?
the
Okay.
4th because I told you before, like I got super mad because I pre-ordered it from Barnes and Noble, and then on the day of publication, they're like, "Oh yeah, sorry, we ran out." Like that was the whole point of
Yeah. You're
pre-ordering that
supposed
I
to know
would
I
get
want one.
one. So anyway, I think that Aaron and I will be doing, and maybe you too, Mom, if you want to join the
Oh,
hotel
right, right.
discussion. We're going to have a theme pod. Yeah, we'll talk about books or our favorite books that take place in
Mhm.
hotels, and Aaron and I will definitely talk more about The
Okay.
Maid. So yeah, cool. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining us, and Mom, thank you.
Happy
This was
October.
great.